Hi, and welcome back to the Healthy Life Approach podcast. I'm Kristen Beasley, and today is the moment we turn all of that insight into action. Over the last couple of weeks, we've unpacked why ADHD and perimenopause can look eerily similar, and we've talked through the biology that can make your brain feel like it's suddenly betraying you. Here's the thing, understanding the why is only step one. The real question is, what do you do next? So let's get practical. If you're in your 40s or 50s and you're noticing new or worsening struggles with focus, organization, follow through, or emotional regulation, you deserve something better than a quick label or a rushed prescription. You deserve a full picture because the answer might be hormones, it might be ADHD, it might be both, or it might be something else that's fixable once someone actually looks for it. Let me paint the scene I hear all the time. A smart, capable woman wakes up one day and thinks, why can't I do things the way I used to? She's forgetting appointments, losing her momentum, snapping more easily, starting tasks and not finishing them. And she wonders, is my brain broken? Am I getting lazy, or is this ADHD? Is this menopause? And she goes to a regular appointment that's barely long enough to check blood pressure and refill a prescription. That's where I want you to slow down, not because your symptoms aren't real, but because they are real. And that's exactly why the evaluation has to be thorough. So, what does a good assessment actually look like? First, it includes a detailed history, not just a symptom checklist from the last month. A clinician who understands midlife cognitive changes will ask about childhood and young adult functioning, not in a judgy way, in a detective way. Were you the student who had the ability but struggled with consistency? Did you lose homework, underestimate time, or procrastinate until panic kicked in? Did you build elaborate systems just to stay afloat while everyone else seemed to cruise? Were you a daydreamer who could hyperfocus on the interesting stuff but drift off during everything else? Those questions matter because they help separate two very different stories. Lifelong ADHD that was managed through coping strategies versus cognitive changes that are genuinely new in midlife. Second, a good assessment takes hormones seriously. Where are you in the menopausal transition? When did these brain changes start compared to shifts in your cycle, your sleep, or your mood? A solid evaluation often includes labs that help clarify the landscape, like estradiol, progesterone, FSH, thyroid markers, and ferritin. Now, labs don't tell the whole story of perimenopause, but ignoring the hormonal context in a midlife woman is like trying to understand a storm while refusing to look at the weather. Third, a good assessment includes rule outs because several issues can mimic ADHD symptoms. Thyroid problems can mess with cognition. Low iron can leave you foggy and depleted. Sleep disorders can disrupt attention and mood. Anxiety, depression, and chronic stress can hijack executive function. A careful clinician doesn't skip this step. They either rule them out or identify them as part of the puzzle before declaring this is ADHD, end of story. Fourth, the process uses validated tools, not just vibes. Structured screening questionnaires can help. And when possible, neuropsychological testing can give a more objective snapshot of your executive function, attention, and working memory. This isn't about proving anything or earning a diagnosis. It's about clarity. It's about naming what's hard and understanding what's actually happening in your brain. And here's a reality check. Most primary care visits are about 15 minutes. That time frame is not designed for this. If your primary care provider is open to starting the conversation, that's helpful. But many women need to go one level deeper to someone with specific expertise, like a psychiatrist who works with adult ADHD, a neuropsychologist, or a clinician who truly understands the overlap between women's hormones and attention regulation. Which brings us to the next question. How do you find the right provider without getting overwhelmed? Start by looking for someone who actually works with adult women. ADHD in high-functioning women can be subtle, masked, and misread for years. Someone who only sees ADHD in kids may miss it in a woman who has spent decades compensating. Next, pay attention to whether they ask about hormones. If a provider doesn't ask you about your cycle history, menopausal status, or timing of symptoms, that's not a small oversight. That's a missing piece. Midlife is exactly when the brain and hormones are interacting in a way you can't separate. And if you can, consider a team approach. Ideally, you have a mental health professional who understands ADHD and a medical provider who takes midlife hormonal health seriously. They don't have to be in the same building, they just need to be working from the same reality, that these symptoms influence each other. Now, if this series is clicking with you, subscribe so you don't miss next week's conclusion on ADHD myths versus facts, as well as other series on the most commonly asked questions about perimenopause, menopause. Okay, let's dive back in. If you want a simple way to start the conversation, here's language you can use. I've noticed significant changes in my executive function like focus, organization, follow through, and emotional regulation. I want to explore whether this is connected to perimenopause, whether an underlying attention disorder is being unmasked, or whether it's a combination. Can we do a thorough evaluation that considers all of these possibilities? That approach does something powerful. It's specific. It doesn't jump to self-diagnosis, and it sets the standard for completeness you're asking for. A thoughtful provider will respect that. Now, let's talk about what happens once you get answers. If the answer is mostly hormonal, meaning there's not strong evidence of lifelong ADHD, and the timing lines up closely with perimenopause, then you have a direction. That may mean discussing hormone therapy with your clinician, often with estrogen and progesterone support as part of the conversation. Emerging research suggests that hormone therapy started during the perimenopausal window can support cognition for many women. That decision is personal and medical, and it belongs between you and your provider, but is absolutely worth a real discussion when your symptoms are stealing your quality of life. And no matter what, the foundation still matters: sleep, stress and cortisol support, movement, nervous system regulation. These aren't cute wellness add-ons. They are conditions that help any other intervention work better. If the answer is ADHD and it looks like it's been there for a long time, but only became obvious when hormones shifted, that's not a moral verdict on you. It's an explanation. And for many women, it's a relief they didn't know they needed. Suddenly, the decades make sense. The overworking, the white knuckling, the feeling of being capable but constantly behind. Treatment may include medication, ADHD-specific coaching, or cognitive behavioral strategies, and practical environmental changes that reduce mental load. And yes, hormonal support can still matter here because stabilizing the hormonal piece can ease ADHD symptoms even if ADHD is the primary diagnosis. And then there's the most common outcome, both. ADHD that was always present, held together by sheer effort and impressive coping systems, and then amplified when perimenopause lowered the brain's available resources. In that situation, the best approach is layered. You address the hormonal component, you address the ADHD component, and you keep building the foundation: sleep, stress management, movement, nutrition, cognitive challenge, and connection. Those are the platforms. Everything else stands on top of them. So here's your takeaway for today. You deserve a complete answer, not a fast label. You deserve an evaluation that respects your history, your biology, and the reality of midlife. And you are allowed to insist on that level of care. I also want to say this directly. I know this topic can feel heavy. A lot of you listening are quietly wondering which box you fit into. And whatever the answer is for you, it's okay. A real answer is almost always less frightening than the endless uncertainty. So here's your action step this week. Make one move from wondering to knowing. Schedule an appointment, write down your history, start tracking symptoms alongside your cycle changes. Pick one step that turns this from a swirling fear into a direction you can actually walk. Next week, we're closing out the month with a myth versus fact episode on ADHD and menopause, because there are some damaging myths out there and they're keeping women stuck. I'll see you next Friday. And if this series helped you, please share it. This is kind of information that can change a woman's life, not someday, but now. Take care of your beautiful brain. Disclaimer, I am a health coach, not a licensed medical professional. This podcast is for education and informational purposes and is not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please talk with your physician or a qualified healthcare provider about your personal situation. Always vet health information carefully, especially when considering new treatments, and consult professionals to make safe, informed choices. This podcast and show notes may include affiliate links. If you purchase through those links, I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you, which helps to support the show. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases.